Girls on Tour is a book club that aims to keep us connected while shining a light on some badass women and gender diverse people within the entertainment industry. Touring can be incredibly boring and sometimes very isolating. Having stories to connect over can make us feel close no matter how far apart we are. This book contains the following contents that may be triggering to some readers: substance abuse and alcoholism, death and grief, sexual assault, and grooming. We are currently in Melbourne. When it was named Girls on Tour, that was not a fun hee-hee-ha-ha. That was literal.
The girls are literally on tour.
They be touring. If you're new here, hi, my name is Monique. I am a tech. I work in all parts of the entertainment industry, and currently for the last couple of years I've been working in musical theatre. I make YouTube videos about that work experience, which then I've been desperately trying to find a way to turn into a book club, because those are the two only singular things I care about in life: books and the entertainment industry. And here we are.
Who am I? What's my name? I'm Bryony, but you can call me B, because I realized last time I introduced myself really formally and that felt really awkward. I am a marriage celebrant. My whole life is romance, and I also have 10 years of theatre experience. So theatre is also my type of shit. I too feel like these are meshing. This works well for my background.
That's also a good segue into how we even met. We met through a boy, unfortunately.
Actually, fun story. It was my 25th birthday.
Your 25th?
It was my 25th birthday. We were at a place. I can't remember. It was
Strawberry Hills Hotel.
Thank you. But I remember someone was bringing you to my birthday, and they're like, is it okay if I bring this person? I was like, absolutely. Bring anyone you want. As soon as you walked in, I was like, I'm taking that. That's mine now. I was correct. I did take her.
There are two of my favorite things about this. So, like, sidetrack is that very soon after we met, we all did a show together. Yeah. Our group of best friends ended up doing a show together, which was such a beautiful, wholesome experience. And also that day when we were going to your birthday, we almost broke up.
What?
The only reason he kept dating me is because he wanted to impress you by bringing me. So we've done some theatre.
We've done theatre together. We've done theatre separately. We've had trauma. That's what this book is about.
If you are not someone who laughs when you're uncomfortable, you're in the wrong place. That do be us. This month's book is A Light in the Dark by Alle Richards. How did this book happen? Well, Alle Richards is an Australian tech. She works in theatres in Melbourne. My friend Izzy, she was like, oh my God, Alle's written these books and they're amazing. There's 2 of them. This is one of them. And I was like, I'll be taking that, thank you, and I'll be reading it, and I'll be telling everyone I know to read it, because amazing. This book, our main character Iris, we kind of follow her. Also, there are trigger warnings for this book that I was unaware of when I went into it. You will have seen them already, but I really just want to double clarify that if you're not comfortable talking about topics that were mentioned in the trigger warnings, this is your chance to get on out of here.
We love you, and it's okay to protect yourself.
In this book, we kind of follow Iris's journey through a couple of different traumas in her life, big yikes, but also through her adolescent exposure to theatre and to the magic of performance and doing musicals, and then also into her adult life, where we see how that still plays a role in her life, even in some really difficult moments. There is another quite prominent storyline within the story, but we can't really talk about it without spoiling the book for you. So all I'm going to say about this book is that even though it was heavy, it was beautiful. I have never ever felt the adolescent joy that I had for discovering theatre and it consuming my life portrayed so accurately. I've never seen even the dark themes in this portrayed so accurately, and it was just so honest. Also, seeing Australian locations and theatres in books always makes me really happy, because I'm like, hee, I've been there.
I honestly feel the same way. It opens at a wedding. I feel like that's not a spoiler. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cute. I friggin' love weddings. And then she, finds theatre, and the way that she describes it is so accurate that you want to be a part of it in any way that you possibly can. It was very heavy. There were moments where I had to put it down, have a little walk away, have a little moment. But I think it's really important. I think this would be really important for young people to read.
It was almost cathartic for me as an adult to read the perspective of the events happening in the book, having been someone in similar vibe situations, being able to see through that situation so clearly with my adult lived experience and just completely understanding how she felt, why she did.
There's a line in it where, I don't want to spoil it, it's talking about how you feel as as a teenage girl specifically, because it is about a teenage girl, and where you're feeling all of these feelings and you know that you're being the worst person in the world, but you just keep being the worst person
in the world. Like, emotional regulation. How do you do that when you are going through all of those things while trying to figure out who you are, how you actually feel? Everyone around you is also doing the same. So they're not consistent. You don't feel like anyone understands you because you don't remember that your parents were literally in the same position as you.
But your parents don't remember being teenagers. There was even moments in this where I was reading, I was like, come on now, why are we doing that? And I was like, you did that. Remember, you did stuff like that, don't we?
Those in glass houses.
Yeah. I was like,
throwing
oops,
stones.
I'm gonna reel myself back in there.
So I would definitely recommend the book. I would be careful with it if the themes in it are a little bit sensitive for you. Get a friend to read it with you so you can talk about it. That'd be a good time.
That's what we did.
And it's really beautiful. Amazing. Also supporting Australian authors. We love to see it.
Who are also in the same worlds as us. Pop off alley.
Spoiler-free part is over. We're going to get into the tea. So if you haven't read it and you don't want it spoiled, Thank you for joining us.
Have a little pause.
Have a pause. Go have a read. Come back.
Hey, it's me again. As you can probably tell, I love the hell out of a good story. Whether it's a book, a play, a movie, or even my best friends telling me their wildest dreams. I've seen so many ways to wed, and I love them all because your ceremony is the perfect place to have your story heard. So if you're looking for someone who won't focus too hard on tradition and will let your authentic self shine, I'm the celebrant for you. I can't wait to hear your love story and help you tell it. To get in touch or find out more, head to my website www.loveburncelebrancy.com.au or my Instagram loveburns.celebrancy, and all of that information will be available for you at Girls on Tour.
And now into the part where we cry. This oofed.
Yeah.
The discovery for Iris that her teacher was a predator. I think one of the things I love the most about this book is that people who do things like what he did think only about themselves in that moment, and they never think about the fact that the people they do it to carry it with them for the rest of their life. Like, in his mind, Nina was a person who had the right to be hurt and damaged by his actions. But Iris, who had, in comparison, quite a small experience with him, it still dictated her life to a degree.
And it dictated her life even though she hadn't processed it yet. It was still there even without her thinking about it.
And that's the thing about being a victim of abuse, is that you may not be ready to accept that you are, but your body already has.
And it's not until either you accept that or an external source says, hey, you've experienced abuse.
And they validate those feelings of ickiness.
And then it all just tumbles out.
For the wholesome parts, her experience discovering theatre, so beautiful.
What show did she?
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd.
Which, so on brand. I was like, me also.
Oh my God. I've done the show twice. 2 different productions. We've seen the show together. We saw it recently. It's that whole thing where you just want to immerse yourself in it. And there was the part where she went and watched the movie version of it and was like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Theatre has this way of transporting you to a different space. And then you leave and you're like, I'm a different person. And if you are so inclined to that stuff, it'll just take over your life in like a very nice way.
And very clearly did for Iris's life. The way that she was in weird competition with her friends was so real, of being socialized as a woman in society. You are great, but not all of you are allowed to be great. Only one of you can be great.
And if you're not as good as them, sorry about it.
The special people get the special things, which also, for another textbook B fiction fact, the message I got about this book was, they haven't given him a name. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, I'm going to start writing this down. All of my things where I'm like, I know what's going to happen.
The textbook of new tropes.
As a trope, not naming him is so good.
There's not a lot of descriptors. She just says that he was attractive and young.
Yeah, and
the only real descriptor of him is his penis, which lol. I can't believe I said
that
which
part,
lol.
I was like, it allows the reader to put whoever is that person for them onto him, which is crazy.
I also think it removes some of his power, like him being a faceless figure. He's just this blob of a bad thing. Whereas if he was a character, you could be like, he's just that character. That character is bad, but people like that character don't exist in real life. But just having him as a vague, not named thing, you can attach so many people subconsciously to someone like that. What was the point where you realized he was not a good time, other than the fact that they never named him.
At first, I thought that I'd missed his name, and then they just started using pronouns, and I was like, oh, fuck, have I missed this? And then I went back and I was like, no, it doesn't have a name. And I was like, oh, maybe they're going to have like a big reveal. I started to have an inkling that he was a bad guy. I don't know when exactly, but I think it was when Mrs. Old, the other teacher, she was making comments or something. I think it was either there or when he was talking about the musicals and like how the other teachers didn't want him to do cabaret. And I was like,
why do you
want to do cabaret actually? Because that is a very sexualized show. Yeah.
I think my moment of realizing was when they were getting ready for that show and he comes in and compliments Nina. No, red flag. Red flag. There is no reason you should be giving like students special attention.
Yes.
And especially not about their appearance. Just the things that Iris was noticing that she was like, that's a bit weird. Him giving her lead roles when she didn't audition for them or that kind of stuff. I was like,
what are we doing there?
And then when she went missing on the excursion, I was like, no.
That was when that hit me like a truck when Iris woke up and she wasn't there. Nay. Fun fact, basically all of my family are teachers, both my parents and my sister and a lot of my aunties and uncles. Pop off, queens. Teacher etiquette is so specific because, hello, we're not pedophiles. You would not allow your student to leave their room, and even if they were sick, you would be standing out in the hallway. You would be in a common area. You would be around other people. Where were they?
Working with kids in shows, I have similar restrictions. It's a weird spot where, based on the working with children stuff, at least in Australia, you're not meant to touch kids for any reason. You're not meant to go into their change rooms for any reason. But we know if you're taking a bunch of year ones swimming, they're probably going to need help from their teacher. If it's in a setting like what I do for work, it's you need help putting a mic on. I need to help put their mic belts on. I need to touch the back of their necks. I need to touch their hair. Like, you are in those spaces, but there is so much etiquette and legal requirement, not just etiquette, around how you interact with kids. Even like, we're discouraged from, you're never, ever, ever alone one-on-one with a kid, ever. Not a girl getting sick in the middle of the night and leaving her room and going to a car park with a male teacher. Like, that would never, ever happen.
Never. Ali did this really well, that she put these little like Easter eggs all the way through to be like, watch out, watch this guy, like he's doing bad things, like he's gonna hurt you.
I thought it was so brilliant because all the things that are a little bit sus and you get a weird feeling about were just like a bit weird. You don't know why, but there's something a little bit wrong. And that is
your
always...
tummy's going, oh, that feels weird.
Yeah, and that's always the way it is in situations like this and with predators and with people who sexually assault other people, is that up until a point, until you're traumatized, basically, you go through the process of being like, oh, did they mean it like that? Or is it that...
Am I putting too
much
much
overreacting?
Yeah.
You make all these excuses until you can't. And that is what Iris experiences. You never really figure out why Nina took it to the cops when she did.
Well, that's what I was thinking, because Nina's stepmom finds a letter that she had written to him, or a diary entry or something. I remember that bit, and asked Nina about it. You never know if the stepmom was like, who is this about? What is blah, 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 because Nina apparently told her it was, another high school kid. Did she do it because she went to therapy and her therapist was like, hey, Queen, that's really bad. You've been abused. Do we want to talk about this? Obviously, that's not how therapists talk. That's obviously I'm not a therapist. Or was it, did she know that it was bad the whole time? Because some of the ways that Nina acts, because she is traumatized, she even says, how do you feel about ruining my relationship?
The way that adult them dealt with that situation was one of my favorite accurate representations. People really don't put a lot of weight on how effective grooming is. Those little claws stick in you past the point of you realizing what has happened is wrong. And that is what's so scary about it. Even at the point where they are going through a court process where they've realized that he's an abuser, that he had sex with kids, all of these things, they're still jealous of each other for having his attention or being the one that he wanted the most, or like those kind of things. And that's so fucked up, but it's so accurate.
Because he made his attention the most important thing. He made it so that they would want everything from him from day one. And that's what groomers do.
Even when they didn't really want it. From Nina's descriptions, she didn't really want to have sex, but she didn't want to upset him.
Yeah, she just wanted his attention. And when you're a teenager, of course you want attention. You want people to see you. You want people to know who you are. And that's what groomers prey upon.
That gap of age and maturity and all of those things almost protects the groomer, because for you to make a fuss is immaturity. for you to tell them they're doing something wrong is you being too immature to understand, you know?
Oh, I thought you were older than this. I thought you could,
I thought you could deal with it.
handle
Blah,
this.
blah, blah. Yeah.
Ugh.
All of that trash
Yeah.
is what they use to stay in that position. The way that so many figures let down these girls in those schools. The fact that Nina was able to leave the school with this man
I'm sorry.
on school days.
Who's taking attendance? Why are we not figuring out where these kids are? Especially, and this is like a private school. I don't know how private schools work. Obviously, public school kid here. But like, what? Where is the accountability that kids can just
Stroll on out of school
yeah.
or go into a teacher's car park. I went to both a private and a public school in my schooling education. In both of those schools, there was always teachers on duty, and a teacher leaving would never go unnoticed. Like, what was he telling them? And there were times when he would leave her and she'd find her own way back to school. None of the bus drivers or whoever who picked her up were like,
what? Why is there a child here?
Yeah.
no one. The teacher, who clearly knew he was sus as fuck, she never said anything either, clearly. Well, I think she made a complaint.
But then she even says she remembers things differently when they ask her in the court case. But I think as a woman, you see things happening and you're like, ooh,
That's icky.
that's an icky, that's giving me the ick. Yeah.
Because even like when the girls would go to visit him, that she would be a bit about it.
Yeah.
On the topic of not trash men in this book, her boyfriend.
I love that he's described as, you know, this like sporty college dude that just likes to go out, get drunk, la 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 la. But when it comes down to it, he does care about her. He basically lets her treat him like a fucking punching bag, a literal punching bag at some points.
Thinking that she's grieving so aggressively. But you know what? I also love that he had a boundary.
And you know what? I'm done.
It's interesting to see characters, especially romantic characters who have a romantic relationship, struggle with their boundaries in a way that's not over romanticized.
Yeah.
To see him being like, you know, I just wanted to check in on you, or like, you know, I still need you to let me know that you're not dead because I'm worried about you, and those kind of things, while also being like, we can't be that close. And then when they start to like hang out again and those kind of things, it's so nice to see that it's not this like, we can't possibly stay away from each other, the stars, like that bullshit, because I don't think that's a healthy way to portray relationships.
Which is fine in fantasy novels because they're not real.
Fantasy.
Yeah.
That is the reality, that loving someone is not enough if they're fucking your life up.
And if they're not doing the work for
themselves. And also for you. But the fact that they like become friends again, and he's the first person to say that she has been abused.
And that hits her like a freight train. She's never thought about that. But that's what happens, that when you have these traumatic experiences, you're not going to straight away go, oop, abuse. You've abused me, because that's not what our brain wants to do, because we want to protect ourselves.
Survive. It seems like he understands her grief, which is really powerful for her at the start. And then he's like, okay,
This
what
is
the fuck
different.
is this? Because this is not it. This is not the grief. When you love someone and you're having an icky situation, you're like, this is bigger than this. So what is this?
Yeah, there's something else that I don't know about. He said that you as a person makes so much more sense now. And she was like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, you were abused as a kid, and that would affect how you live your life. And she's like, what?
Her use of substances to cope, again, not romanticized.
And I love that they talk about that. She knows, she's like, this is bad, but I'm going to do it anyway because I can't survive without this. And that's sometimes when people are using, like, you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever, it is literally a coping mechanism. Yeah.
You know what I fucking loved about the arc of this book? Let me tell you. Not only do you see like her adolescence, which is beautiful, but then you see her growth also as an adult. Getting through the grief of her mum and like her being on the outs with her family, kind of like their family hasn't been the same after she died. Her relationship breakdown, her best friend. I was surprised that they were still best friends in adult life, because it sounded like they really drifted apart during school.
When you know someone at a really young age, you like know them and you could like come in and out of their lives, but you still remember that 13-year-old person that they were.
Their relationship gets a bit weird when she's like really going through it, and seeing all of these her job, like everything gets a bit like, oh. And then seeing her really realistically come out of that, her moving back in with her dad and like going through all of her mum's stuff and like kind of doing that on her own. And then the support network being around when she was actually healed enough to stop being a dirtbag to them, which we love to see because that is the way it should be. And then also her finding more of her healing through theatre, through community theatre, and through going back into that space with people.
It's so nice because her introduction to theatre was him, and he was such a perfectionist with theatre, and everything had to be perfect.
And let's be honest, with our adult recognition of the situation, he was a failed performer who never made it into commercial theatre. Teaching, beautiful, credible, important profession.
One of the most important professions. But when you put your failures on your students, that's when it's fucked up.
And we all had them. We had the teachers who use their position as a teacher as like a power trip. I could stay here all day. You're wasting your own time, not mine. I'm like, Miss Carol. Where do you get off, ma'am? Like, I just wanted to play Lego in class. I'm on the spectrum and you've got me in this shit learning environment. Like, what do you want from me?
What else can I do? Even I did music theatre at university. All of my teachers were people in the industry, is what they were, And you could really tell the people who actually cared about facilitating growth and teaching people what it's like in the industry and all that kind of stuff. And then there's people who are like, you will never make it. I didn't make it, so you will never make it. You're not good enough. Just because you didn't make it, what does make it even mean anyway? His perfectionism, coming back to the book, of what theatre is and how it's this sophisticated art, which it can be, but it can also be fun.
Be really dumb.
Yeah, and silly. And that's what I think the community indie theatre that she finds at the end showed her, is theatre can just be
about having a good time.
Yeah, 5 people in a black box theatre just fucking around, and is still, the audience is going to love it.
And I love that that's where she finds reconnection to that part of her identity, and because she is working in those bigger shows. Yeah. She's doing work in those large spaces. I am working in those big shows. And I wish sometimes that we were back in that trash little theatre, working on that little show, pulling budget out of what budget?
Out of literally nowhere.
Getting our set and costume pieces from reverse garbage. Yeah. There's so much more heart in those spaces. Yeah. And this is why I always love going back to Fringe, and like, even though I will never be paid as well in Fringe as I am in commercial theatre, because it's a money-making machine. Like, that is why it's so successful.
And that's why it works.
And that's why it works. There's so much money in it, and there's so much money that comes out of it. Even though that is more sustainable as a career, as a income source, there is something you get out of every single person in the room being so 100% invested into a piece of art that you're making together. You can't put a price on that. That experience is literally crack. Not that I've done crack, but I imagine that's what crack's like.
If anyone's done crack, just let us know if it's similar to being in an indie theatre space.
To doing a community theatre show.
There was another thing that I wanted to say when you were talking about how she had lost touch with her family. The conversation she remembered with her mum, when I think the mum had a fight with the dad and was like, when you're a mother and when you're a wife, you have to do everything and you have to blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, it's so real. Like, as a woman, you put all of this stuff onto yourself, and other people put stuff onto you because they think you can do it. But even in that moment, Iris is like, I know that she's not giving me this lesson for real. She's just venting. Some people would be like, okay, yes, write that down. And I thought that was really interesting as well. Even after all that and knowing that, she still became that for her brother and her dad. She cleaned up her mum's stuff. She brought back the family dinners. Even though she was a train wreck. No offense, Iris, you're going through it.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, actually. That as much as we want to... the patriarchy. As much as we want to do that, the role that has been laid out for us is so deeply ingrained. My whole life, I either was around single mothers who had to do everything on their own, or mothers who may as well have been single because their male partners were literal fucking children being raised by their partner. Or the very best option was that they were around, but it was a very like nuclear family setup. He made all the money, she did literally everything else. And maybe that worked for them. Great. That's not what I wanted for me.
No.
Absolutely not. I think this conversation comes up a lot in my life because in this industry, in this part of the industry, I'm talking about kids real quick. Jesus Christ. If I look at my career right now, there is no possible way that I could have children. A man in my position could. Purely based on the biology of giving birth.
He's got to get in there, get out. That's it. That's all he needs to do, really.
It's a weird thing to think, like, everyone will always so casually be like, oh my God, do you want to have kids? When are you going to have kids? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, when is the industry going to allow me? Other than all of the other reasons why that's not right for me.
Yeah.
When is this industry going to allow for me to take maternity leave to keep a job during that? Because as far as I'm aware, I wouldn't be able to do my job pregnant. And on shows like this, there is no like, and we'll hold it for you until you get back. The contract will be over. Jobs come off the back of other shows and other contracts. So when you're ready to go back to work,
like, where are the connections? Where are the people?
Where do you go? And even then, most people go back to work going, I'll go back 4 days a week and I'll do my 9 to 5 and I'll get my mum to look after the baby at that point. I'm sorry. I work 12-hour days, 3 days a week. In a bump-in period, I work 14-hour days, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
From everyone I've spoken to, they reach this point where they're like, okay, well now touring is not an option because the kid needs to go to school and we want it to settle down and live and have stability and all that stuff that kids need. Every time it comes up, I'm like, if I was a man, none of this would matter. I could go on tour, I could do all these things, and no one would bat an eyelash. They'd be like, wow, it's sad you can't be there for your kids a lot, but how great that you're supporting your family.
There's always going to need to be a parent or a parentified person with the child, and it is a lot of the time the mother or the birthing parent.
Falling into that, that's what you're meant to do. You're meant to do these certain things in this dynamic and blah, 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 and you're meant to be kind and you're meant to be quiet and blah, 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 blah.
This is what you're meant to do, and are you doing the opposite of that? No, you're doing bad. You've got to do this, la la la. And it's like, okay, can I just try and be a person for 2 seconds?
Even in the face of mass trauma, like you said, she still kind of falls back into that. Even as someone who is like, my mum's venting to me about things she's unhappy with. Her going, she's venting, goes, that means that bad.
Yeah, but she still did it.
I don't know. I know that feeling of being like, I just want to be helpful. I just want to be busy.
We could just talk forever about so many different things that this book brings up. And you're like, real? Some of the time I was reading it and I was like, correct. Oh, there it is again. Me too, babes.
I have strayed in my reading life from reading contemporary real world fiction because I find that it's so romanticized or over dramatic or it's not realistic in any way, which sometimes is great. And other times I'm like, why are they together? That's abuse.
Yeah.
Enemies to lovers.
Why are we doing that?
No,
thank you. You just met him 2 days ago. What is
you're
happening?
not in love.
Yeah.
To see the human experience captured so perfectly with all of its yucky parts and all of its really beautiful and romantic parts was just so chef's kiss. I'm really excited to read Ali's other book. You know what I love? You know what I have a passion for? Authors who have covers that don't match, but they fit the same vibe. All of them, so they look delicious together on a bookshelf. Thank you.
Thank you. Because here's a little note for any authors that are watching or listening. If you change the cover of a book series halfway through, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to stand there and give you a strong talking to, because what the fuck is that? This is also for book publishers. Who are you talking to? Who gave you this idea midway through a series when someone has already bought 5 of the books and now there's only 3 left?
Also, you know what would be great if we made it a different size?
Okay. Go to therapy, actually.
Some people just want to watch the world burn. I'm really excited to see what other people say about this one.
Yes.
I'm excited to see the chats that come out of it. I feel like we're all going to bond through trauma.
There is a part in this that they mention someone from a theatre company that is in a similar situation to that the teacher is in, that gets is accused of sexual harassment. That happened in Australia quite recently.
Yeah. And I also love that so severely because everyone thinks subconsciously that talented people are good people.
A lot of talented people are good people, but a lot of bad people have
are also
talents.
very talented. That's a really beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When a bad person is put in a position where it's literally their job to be trained to be charming,
You're fucked.
you're fucked. People in this industry who are nothing like you would expect them to be, and everyone in the industry knows about it. They have a reputation. They have a whole lot of people who don't want to work with them anymore, but because of the position that they're in, there's no choice. All you can do, take measures to protect yourself and suck it up, knowing that you're going to have to work with these people at some point. To talk about it happening and someone being it being known was so real. And it's such an ick situation because no one knows what to do about it. At this point, that power imbalance is there and you don't know what to do. So don't trust who you think someone is when you don't know them just because
Trust your gut.
Trust your gut. But also remember that your gut doesn't know someone because you've spoken to them one time or they liked your comment on Instagram or you liked their performance. Yeah. You can love their art.
But you don't know them.
Us writing and dying for people on a personal level who we just like the work of is part of what makes them invincible in the face of the shit things they do.
Thinking of that parasocial relationship, bringing it to a place where we would both have a similar experience. We grew up in pop punk, metal,
the land of groomers.
The land of groomers, basically. And every other day you're like, oh, that person of that band that I really liked turned out to be a pedophile? Cool. Nice.
That part of you that wants to feel connected to someone who makes an art form dies.
And then there's that whole thing, people go separate the art from the artist, but I don't know.
Where do you stand on that?
The only time that this is really, truly I've had to think about it is the J.K. Rowling situation. She's not a groomer, to my knowledge. She has very different opinions to me. She's a transphobe. She's a TERF. But it was very difficult at the beginning when all of these shitty things came out. She's also racist. There's so many things. Whereas, because I grew up with her, like my dad read me the books, like from when I was a little kid. Then I read the books. Then I had the audiobooks, the Stephen Fry ones, and then all of these things.
All of our friends, we all love it.
And as someone with the brain that I have, that was my safe place. Like Harry Potter was like the thing that I knew the most about. I knew everything about it, I felt quite safe there. But then when you find out that the person who wrote it is a shitty person, for me, it ruined it, and I can't anymore. I don't buy anything to do with it. I don't even watch the movies anymore, even though I still have them at my house because they're just there. I don't read the books because for me, I can't separate it because I'm reading the words of someone who is a bad person.
I realized the point where I can separate the art from the artist is how much I truly have an impact on their career. There's a lot of controversy around Michael Jackson, right? I'll still listen to his music because I can listen to it on Spotify. He doesn't see a cent of that money.
Oh, I like that.
Nothing about me enjoying his music supports or doesn't support him in any way. Even if he was still alive, when someone is like that mega of a icon and has that much wealth, little old me in Australia listening to his music in my downtime is not making or breaking his career. And to the same degree, me watching Harry Potter 2 at Christmas time on the DVD that I bought 17 years ago is not making or breaking J.K. Rowling's career. Am I gonna recommend her books to people anymore? Probably not. But if I know that someone in the industry I directly work in is an abuser, is a shitty person, is trash to work with, is inappropriate in the workplace, I will do everything I can to not work with them and to not support the things that they do, because that I do have a direct impact on.
I like that.
Because me saying, oh, I'm not going to go to this local band's show because I think they're shit people, that has more weight.
And do you know what? There are still Harry Potter things that I interact with, fan fiction. Because she gets none of that. And I will read that till the day I die.
Yeah, when it comes to things that I actually have an impact on, like Australian artists, Australian creators of art and works and professionals, I will make that my line.
Because you have the ability to impact that.
Yeah, because me saying, no, I don't want to work with that person because I've heard they're really inappropriate with women will actually have some kind of knock-on effect. Maybe.
This could be a whole different conversation and podcast, but like, when are people going to like stop putting those people in the rooms? You know what I mean? Like, when are they going to stop giving them the slots? When are they going to stop giving them the time of day?
And that's that icky situation of like those people being put in those spaces because other people need them to be there is what puts other people at risk. And it is exactly the same as teachers being given free space over students in inappropriate spaces, like what happened to Iris. Boom.
We circled back. We propped it back in. We went on a rant and we came home. Final thoughts.
I'm going to go cry. Final thoughts. I love the book. I would recommend it to literally anyone. If pre-therapy me had read this, it would have fucked me up because it would have been that moment of like, Nick being like, oh, no wonder you're so fucked up.
You're like, and what do you mean by that?
Because the behaviors are the same. Regardless of what flavor the abuser is, they all do the same shit because they're unoriginal and they're garbage.
Trash.
They all use the same tactics and they fucking work, unfortunately. So like it would have been really uncomfortable for me because instead of me, like I said earlier, looking at it and being like, oh, I recognize that, I can see where this is going, I would have been like, oh yeah, wait. But I think it honestly would have been really impactful. Yeah. Because it's handled with such like care and grace and it's so genuine and honest and beautiful and I love it so much. Incredible.
There are parts of this that I really want high school kids to read and to internalize. I've got a niece that's going into high school at the moment. There are things that I want to protect her from, but you can't. If people would read this and know that this is how people act before they have the lived experience of that's how people act, I think that would be so valuable.
If you haven't already shared them, we need to hear your thoughts on this month's book. In order to have spoiler-free chats about the books that we're reading, we are using the book club app Fable. It's free, it's quick and easy to make an account and keep up to date with the Girls on Tour book club. There are 2 separate book clubs, one for the non-fiction book and one for the fiction books. Make sure you head over to our Instagram, TikTok and YouTube page at the start of every month to see what book is coming next. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching if you're watching this on YouTube.